Okay, good morning. Our lesson for today is break-even analysis. That is how to use Excel to perform break-even analysis. Right. Before we start, we will have to look at what actually break-even analysis represents. This break-even analysis is also referred to as cost volume profit analysis. Cost volume profit analysis. And say that break-even point represent the number of units you must produce or sell at no profit nor loss. So if you are in the production business, or if you are in a business that buy and sell, you may wish to determine how much do I produce or how much do I sell, that at the end of the period, there will be no profit for me, there will be no loss for me. One may say that what is the sense for determining what to produce or what to sell not to make a profit? Say that through break-even analysis, one will know the volume of production or sales to make a profit. So if you get to know how much to produce or how much to sell in order not to make a profit nor loss, that same analysis will also help you or will also guide you to determine how much to produce or how much to sell to make a profit. So given your fixed cost, cost per unit, and revenue per unit. So it means that when you are performing this analysis, we make use of fixed cost, cost per unit, and revenue per unit. So for example, you might want to know the break-even point for selling balloons. And if you know the break-even point, you know how much balloons you have to sell to make a profit. Now, before we go on to the computation, we need to look at assumptions behind the cost volume profit analysis, which is also referred to as the break-even analysis. The first assumption is that all costs can be resolved into fixed and variable elements. So when you have cost of production or cost of sales, we could resolve it into fixed cost and variable cost. Say fixed costs remain constant and variable costs vary proportionately with activity. With fixed cost, no matter the volume of activity, it remains constant. But with variable cost, it keeps varying when you also vary your production level or your sales. So over the activity range, consider cost and revenue behave in a linear fashion. That the only factor affecting cost and revenue is volume. That technology, production methods, and efficiency remain unchanged. In particular, for graphical method, that the analysis relates to one product only or to a constant product mix. Then there is no stock level change or that stock are valued at marginal cost only. So these are the assumptions you have to put at the back of your mind when you are performing break-even analysis. Okay, so we do this analysis in either computational approach or in a graphical approach. And in a computational approach, we employ these formulas to perform the analysis. The first formula is the formula to compute what you call contribution, which is the selling price per unit minus the variable cost per unit. Then we have the formula to determine the break-even point in units, how many units we need to produce or sell so that at the end, we will not make profit, we will not make loss. So it means profit to be zero, and that is fixed cost over contribution per unit. Then break-even point in sales. In terms of sales volume, the sales value is fixed cost over contribution per unit times selling price per unit. Then we have contribution sales ratio, which is contribution per unit over selling price per unit. The level of sales to result in target profit is fixed cost plus target profit over contribution. So these are few of the formulas that we can employ to perform our analysis. And as I said, we are going to look at how we can use Excel to perform this analysis. In Excel, to perform break-even analysis, as I said, we resolve all costs into variable and fixed elements. So we create a sheet that will contain only fixed cost element. Another sheet will contain only the variable cost element. Now, to do that, we will have to create a table for the variable cost element, right? So this time, this table has been created here, and we shall look at how the table is created. Okay. Come in. To create a table for fixed cost element, here we are. We click in the end of the cells we have typed, then we go to insert, select table, right? And when you select table, it takes you here. You make sure my table has headers is selected, then you click OK. Another alternative is to go home. And when you go home, you have format as table and make a choice of a design. Then you click OK. The last alternative is to use the shortcut Control+T. Control+T will also give you a table. So when you finish, you click OK. The moment you create a table, you will see design ribbon get selected. And as the design ribbon is selected, you can provide your table name in this box. When you go out of the table, the design ribbon disappears. And for that matter, you cannot name a table when you are outside the table. So you must always go inside the table, and from there you will see the design ribbon. Then you come and click inside the table name. See below the table name, you will see table, either table 1, table 2, table 3, or whatever number. So you clear what is there, then you type the table name. We call this as fixed table. You see, when you are naming a table, you cannot create space between the name. So I decided to put it together as one word, fixed table. Somebody can also decide that, well, let me use underscore to separate the two words. So it's fixed underscore table, right? But we are going to put it as one word, fixed table, right? So we have our table down. Then we go to the variable cost. The variable cost elements are also stated here. We create a table for this as well. And this table is also known as variable table. This is also called variable table. Please, we should know that this particular variable cost element, they are going to be stated in terms of their per unit. That is a shipping per unit. If we ship 1 unit of the product, how much do we pay? Commission per unit, and then other variable cost per unit. Then we have the fixed cost. As for the fixed cost, they are stated in totals. Okay. Now, having labeled and created and labeled our tables, we move on to the break-even analysis sheet. And when it comes to this place, we have to get the price per unit here. Then we have units sold also here. We have the variable cost. We have the fixed cost. We have the unit margin. Unit margin is the same as contribution. We have the gross margin, which is the same as the total contribution. Then we can have the break-even point in units. We can also have the break-even point in sales. All right. Now, before we start our computation, we will name the cells. For instance, this cells C2, we are going to label it as price per unit. C3 labeled as unit sold. C5 labeled as variable cost. C6 labeled as fixed cost, right? And to achieve this, there is a simple way we can just click one button and all these names will be set for us. Okay, so in this place, I'll delete one of the names and maintain only one so that the name we are going to create will be very simple for us. So I'll just leave the unit margin. And here also, I'll only leave the gross margin. Okay, now to create the names, we will highlight from B to C up to the sales, break-even point in sales. Then we go to the formulas ribbon. And from the formulas ribbon, there is define name section. When you get to the define name section, we have create from selection. So we click on the create from selection. Say create names from values in the left column. This means that C, which is on the right side, will be named with the value price per unit, which is on the left side. So we are naming column C with the values in the left column, that is column B. Then we click OK. If you want to find out whether these names have been set, from the formulas ribbon, you see there's name manager here, right? When you open the name manager, you see all the names there. Fixed cost is there, gross margin, price per unit, sales, unit margins, unit sold, variable cost, and the tables are also here. Fixed table, then we have the variable table. Okay, all right. The same way, when you select the cell C2, each name appears here, the name box. You see, anytime you select a cell, this cell is called E1. You see, the name is in the cell, in the box, name box, E1. But because we have changed this name, it is no more showing C2, it is rather showing price per unit. Okay, very good. Now, price per unit, units sold, all these will be supplied. But we are going to compute the rest. So we go on to the variable cost. This variable cost is the total variable cost. The variable cost sheet here contains the variable cost per unit. But what we are going to compute here represents the variable cost total. The variable cost total is calculated by multiplying the production level or the unit we are going to sell by the variable cost per unit. Unfortunately, variable cost per unit is also going to be given by different items. So when you sum them all up, when you sum up all these values, that gives us the variable cost per unit. Then these values will now be multiplied by the unit sold to arrive at the variable cost total. So the function or the formula becomes sum. We first sum up the values from the variable table. So because we are summing from the table, we can mention the table name, and the table name is called variable table. See, when you come here, you see variable cost, you see variable table. We are computing the variable cost, and to compute it, we use the values from the variable table. So I'll double click on the variable table, close the bracket. That is the sum of values within the variable table. And this will have to be multiplied by the unit sold. So when I click in this place, that gives me the unit sold. So we have the sum of values in the variable table multiplied by the unit sold, and this will give me the variable cost total. When I finish, I'll press the enter key. Because this is a value, a cost, I'll format this. So to format the 0 to give us accounting value, I click on the home and I click on comma, this comma here, so that the 0 will turn to dash. Then fixed cost. Fixed cost is not affected by the volume of activity. So as for this, we don't multiply by the unit sold. So for the fixed cost, we only sum up the values from the fixed table. So sum of values from the fixed table. Here we have the fixed table here. So sum of values from the fixed table will give us what you call the fixed cost. Then we enter. This is also cost. So I'll click on comma. The unit margin, which is the same as the contribution, the formula we learned indicated to us that the unit margin or the contribution is what do you call it? Selling price per unit minus the variable cost per unit. So selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit gives us what you call the unit margin. So to get this equal to the price per unit is here minus the variable cost per unit. The variable cost per unit is the sum of all values within the variable table. So we say minus the sum of values from the variable table. So we say variable table, we accept the variable table, right? So the sum of values from the variable table represent the variable cost per unit. We less that from the price per unit to arrive at the unit margin, which is the same as contribution per unit. We accept this also. Then we format this to accounting value. Gross margin is the total contribution. And total contribution is obtained by multiplying the unit sold by the unit margin. So we multiply the unit sold by the unit margin to arrive at the gross margin. So the formula is unit sold multiplied by unit margin. So unit sold multiplied by the unit margin gives us the gross margin. Then I accept this. I'll format this also to accounting value. Now, the break-even point in units. We learned that break-even point is also fixed cost per unit. Fixed cost per unit. Now, break-even point in unit is fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. This is the function. Fixed cost divided by contribution per unit. Now you're going to see how we can use the Excel function to get the contribution. Because we are dividing fixed cost by contribution, in Excel or even using any calculator, if you divide any value by 0, you get divided by 0 error. So for instance, if I should divide the fixed cost, so let me say fixed cost, when I type the fixed cost, it appears here. So if I decide to divide the fixed cost by contribution, which is the unit margin, let's see the outcome. So I'm dividing the fixed cost by the unit margin. When I hit the enter key, it gives me an error known as divided by 0 error. This error doesn't mean that the formula is not correct, but because at the moment unit margin is 0, contribution is 0, we are dividing fixed cost, whether the fixed cost is 0 or not, we are dividing that by a value that is 0, and that will give us the divided by 0 error. So another example I can give is that, in case I want to divide content of D1 by content of E1, this will also give me divided by 0 error. But the moment I put in values, let's say 25, and then here 5, you see it has become 5. 25 divided by 5, give me 5, okay? But if I take away this 5, it means that I'm dividing 25 by 0, and this is divided by 0 error. So this doesn't mean the formula is wrong. But because we are creating the template and this time there are no values for contribution, if we just start the formula, we are going to get the divided by 0 error. So in Excel, where you are working and you are likely to result in an error, we apply a function known as if error. So if error function works like this. So if error, we say value, and then value if error. So the value here is going to be the formula. The value if error means in case the formula results in an error, what do you expect to replace the error message? Initially, we had divided by 0 error message. So in place of that, what do you want? That is the value if error. Okay, so the value will be the formula. The value if error will be the value you want to replace the error. Like I said, where I was dividing D1 by E1, you see that gives the divided by 0 error. But now if I should use the if error function, if error, and I say that D1 divided by E1, this is the value, comma, then the value if error, maybe I want 0. So instead of this divided by 0 error, I want the system to record 0 for me. Let's see. When I enter, you see 0 is there. So this did not give us the divided by 0 error. Rather, it has given us 0, right? So if I put in values, let me put in here 20 and put in here 4. See, this has given me 5, this has given me 5. But the moment I clear this 4, then this place will give me an error, this place will give me 0. So we can apply the same concept here, because for now, contribution is 0. So if you just divide the fixed cost by contribution, we are going to get the divided by 0 error. So to avoid that, we use the if error function. So if error, then fixed cost is here. So fixed cost divided by contribution or unit margin, and this is the value, comma. Should this give us an error, then 0 should be there. So if error, fixed cost divided by unit margin, comma, 0. Okay, so that becomes the formula. Now we enter. This is unit, so you have to, we cannot click on comma to make it a currency. We have to leave it at 0. Now the break-even point in sales. Break-even point in sales is selling price per unit multiplied by the break-even in units, the break-even point in units. So break-even point in sales is the selling price per unit multiplied by break-even point in units. Now we accept this. This could be a value. Okay, selling price could be a value, but the unit sold is unit. So that one, we don't format it. Now, having done this, we are going to provide some values for fixed cost element, values for the variable cost element, values for selling price, and values for the units sold. So going back to the fixed cost, insurance is 150, rent 800, and the other fixed cost 150. Then go to the variable cost. Shipping is 0.8. Then commission is 2. And others 4. Now, when I get to the break-even analysis, here the price per unit is 15, and the unit sold is 500. So immediately you see that the system will do the computation for us. So with price per unit of 15 cedis, with unit sold of 500, it tells us that variable cost total is 3,004, fixed cost is 1,001, unit margin, that is contribution 8.2, gross margin is 4,001. This is unit. Let me reduce this to nearest whole number. So you see, when I use these zeros here, the first one is increasing decimal. This one is decreasing decimal. So I click on the decreasing decimal to arrive at a whole number. So this means that my break-even point in unit is 134. My break-even point in sales is 2012.2. So this is how Excel is used to perform break-even analysis in Excel. Now, our next video will consider how to use the break-even chart, how to construct break-even chart in Excel.